This is some form of malpractice on the Kings' part. This is some form of malpractice.
I'm so proud of you.
Richard, does this trade put the Kings in any sort of playoff contention in the West?
No, God, no.
But in my mind, being a naive 21, 22-year-old, I was like, they not trading nobody.
When thinking about the most controversial trades in NBA history, what comes to mind? The James Harden trade to the Brooklyn Nets for Ben Simmons? The Luka and Trae Young trade on draft night? Or maybe the time Kyle Korver got traded for a copy machine? Well, there's one trade in NBA history that was once mocked by everyone, on ESPN, at SportsCenter, and around the league. A trade that made both of these teams put all their chips on the line and gamble the future of their franchise. In 2022, the Pacers and the Kings agreed to a blockbuster trade that would send future superstar Tyrese Haliburton to the Indiana Pacers in exchange for the star big man Domantas Sabonis. Let's revisit the trade that shook up the entire NBA landscape and how this trade would affect the franchise's future in the NBA. To this day, people still look at this trade as a poor decision by the Sacramento Kings and an absolute steal for the Pacers. You can't fully blame them. Have you seen Tyrese Haliburton recently? This season, he's been putting up 2K numbers: 43 points and 12 assists, 25 points and 17 assists, 37 points and 16 assists, all with 0 turnovers. Just look at those stats. Looks like MVP numbers, right? In his 4th year in the NBA, Haliburton is making a legit case for being considered not just an All-Star, but an All-NBA as well. And for Sabonis, the other All-Star in the trade, well, he just carried an entire franchise to their very first NBA playoff berth in almost 16 years, while dropping a double-double every single time. He was an offensive juggernaut that symbolizes the modern big men in the NBA. Today, we're going to find out who really won the trade that caused shockwaves in the NBA and how the Kings' gamble actually paid off. But first, let's rewind all the way back to 2022 to better understand why these teams pulled the trigger. In the 2022 season, it's safe to say that the Pacers and Kings were on the same bus. The Kings had not made the playoffs since 2006, the longest active streak in the NBA. And they were on pace to extend that streak, having to fight for their lives just to enter the play-in. The Pacers were also struggling really badly, losing 8 of their last 10 games. To add insult to injury, the fans were walking out on them, strongly expressing their concerns about the current state of the organization. Well, Pacers president of basketball operations Kevin Pritchard certainly heard them. In less than 48 hours, he pulled the trigger and did 2 quick trades. First, he sent Caris LeVert to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Ricky Rubio, who was ruled out for the season due to an injury, and 3 first-round picks. It was a clear sign that the Pacers wanted to go into full rebuild mode. At least the fans knew that they weren't trying to win anymore and were tanking for a better draft pick. But what came next, no one expected. What came next was a blockbuster trade, with the Pacers sending Justin Holiday, Jeremy Lamb, and their star, Domantas Sabonis, to the Sacramento Kings for Tristan Thompson, Buddy Hield, and a future superstar who was still on his rookie contract, Tyrese Haliburton. The media went nuts. That Woj bomb spread like wildfire on social media. The notion? The Kings got robbed. Everybody around the league also strongly felt like the Kings lost that trade. NBA analysts JJ Redick, Zach Lowe, and Richard Jefferson expressed their disbelief in the trade, saying it was too lopsided and that this was the very reason why they hadn't had a single playoff berth in 16 years.
I think structurally their roster fits better in Indiana. With Miles Turner, I think it becomes very unlikely you see him lose.
Who could blame them? On paper, this trade looks tremendously one-sided. The Kings let go of their best player, Tyrese Haliburton, who was putting up Steve Nash numbers in his sophomore year. Not to mention Buddy Hield, who was an elite three-point shooter that every team needs. And what did they get? Domantas Sabonis, who was seen as a great player, but giving up a young future superstar for an older player on a worse contract didn't make any sense. And giving up Tyrese Haliburton made the Kings' three-point percentage plummet. It was clear that both teams had chosen their path. The Pacers decided to bet on the future and develop Haliburton into a modern-day Magic Johnson, and the Kings, well, they decided to build a win-now roster around De'Aaron Fox. The Kings were projected to miss the 2023 playoffs once again. NBA analysts predicted them to fall between 11th to 13th in the NBA standings, just a spot they knew all too well. As well for the Pacers, with Haliburton running the point alongside star big man Miles Turner, the team was just too young to compete. But wherever you look at it, you just know that the future in Indiana is brighter than in Sacramento. Many also predicted that the young Pacers might even outperform Sacramento that season. I mean, that Kings roster stinks on paper. Then the 2022-2023 season started. The Kings had high hopes and there was little room for error. The Kings needed to win now. How hard can it be to just qualify for the playoffs? Well, it didn't help that the Kings started the season losing 4 straight games. Then they won a couple games. NBA fans were not used to the Kings winning and thought that it was just a fluke. Then they won 4 straight. The narrative still was not in the Kings' favor as they only acquired their win streak facing off against weak teams. Then they won against the Grizzlies, a legit contender in the West, to secure a 7-game winning streak. Suddenly, the Sacramento Kings are on top of the standings. And it wasn't just for a handful of games. Their momentum snowballed. At the All-Star break, they were the 3rd seed in the West. And guess who made it to the All-Star teams? De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. The Kings have their superstars. They trusted Fox and Sabonis to lead the charge, and they did, having the best offense in the entire NBA. This team's fast-paced offense was facilitated by Fox's quickness and Sabonis' agility with his size. But if they don't have shooters around them, how can they have the best offense in the NBA? Well, the addition of Harrison Barnes, Keegan Murray, Kevin Huerter, and Malik Monk definitely filled that hole. The Kings now have 6 players who are averaging over 12 points a game, with Fox leading the entire squad with 25 points along with his 6 assists per game. Sabonis was just the perfect fit for Fox. He can space the floor, post up, and dish those dimes as well. He became the 3rd best center in the league behind Jokic and Embiid. In Indiana, Sabonis did not have a point guard who could run their offense, but now in Sacramento, he's got Fox, who can definitely control the tempo of any game. The Kings steamrolled into making history. That team was so good, they had to make a beam that lights up the sky in Sacramento. They made it to their first playoff appearance in 16 years. And their first test? The defending champions, the Golden State Warriors. And we all know what happened. If it wasn't for that 50-point outburst from Stephen Curry in Game 7, the Kings, who were doubted all season long, would have advanced to the second round of the playoffs. It was a massive success for the Kings. Making it to the playoffs was a huge leap, and they were ready for more. With the Kings having their fair share of success, what about the other side of the coin in Indiana? Despite the Pacers not clinching a play-in seat, Pacers fans weren't dissatisfied. Why? Because Tyrese Haliburton definitely balled out. At just 22 years old, the kid averaged 20.7 points, 10.4 assists, and over 40% from beyond the arc. Not to mention his tremendous assist-to-turnover ratio. That's like better stats than the MVP seasons of Steve Nash. The Pacers fans knew the future was right there in front of their eyes, and it was just too bright. And in the 2023-2024 season, the star just went supernova. Haliburton single-handedly brought the #1 offense in Indiana, dethroning their counterpart, the Sacramento Kings. This team was averaging almost 128.4 points per game. Hallie was also surrounded by players who knew their roles well. There are 8 players on this team that are averaging double digits. It's his team and everyone knows it. Haliburton controls everything. He is a generational playmaker, getting the best out of everybody. The results? Bringing the Pacers into the finals of the inaugural in-season tournament. The Pacers do not always get the spotlight. They were supposed to be a lackluster team with only 1 national TV game. But now, Tyrese Haliburton put them on the radar. So, the bottom line. Who won the trade? Well, it's a debate that won't end anytime soon. But we're pretty sure JJ Redick, Richard Jefferson, and other analysts out there won't think that this trade is ridiculous. In hindsight, each team got exactly what they wanted. The Kings complemented their star point guard and surrounded him with ballers that can legitimately shoot. Sabonis has become a playmaking center who can give you an easy double-double. And the Pacers got their bright future building around the new point god in Tyrese Haliburton. Now it's just a matter of time. Will Haliburton and the Pacers become a legit contender in the scrappy Eastern Conference? Or will the offensive juggernaut in the Kings thrive in the wild, wild West? Let us know what you think in the comments, and as always, thank you for watching.